Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, welcome. And we have a very exciting program here for you this morning. Dr. Kunda already has a patient asleep, so we're going to immediately begin with just a brief explanation of the Archimedes stent, and then we'll have some comments from Carlos before we immediately join the procedure.
So hello everybody, welcome. This is an exciting day. I believe we will exchange a lot of knowledge regarding this new technology. Overall, to see nice cases with Professor Kunda, how to deal and how to manage with these patients. So welcome and enjoy it.
So first, I want to talk a little bit about the stent itself. And I need to roll back to the beginning here. I have one financial disclosure to make because I do have a financial interest in the Archimedes stent. We're joined on the panel today by Eric Mangiardi, who is the president and CEO of Q3. And this is the company that manufactures and distributes the stent. This was a long project for Eric and myself, over 10 years in the development from some ideas I had about fluted stent and Eric's interest in bioabsorbable materials. So we combined those to come up with this idea for a stent. And this is the final product. You can see on the left, the stent is a biodegradable device that is fluted or twisted into a helical pattern, which results in a unique central channel accommodating a 35 thousandths guide wire, and the flow of the material, depending on which duct it is, goes along the outside of the stent. So this was adapted by Eric from the idea of the Archimedes technique of lifting water. So one of the concepts here is that the plastic stents that we typically use in both the bile duct and the pancreatic duct, they all eventually are doomed to fail from bacterial biofilm buildup on the surface. And a device not only is biodegradable, but in a way self-cleaning as well, because the biofilm is continuously shed as the stent slowly degrades. So a little bit about the stent itself. Basically, it's a synthetic polymer, and we're surrounded by polymers. You're probably wearing polymers at this moment. Polymers are just large molecules that are composed of repeating subunits. They're found in plastics and rubbers typically, and much of the chemistry of polymers that provides them with strength, elasticity, conformability, comes from the chemistry itself of the molecular structure of the polymers. So all of these things are controllable through chemistry. So the biodegradable polymers used in the Archimedes stent are specifically constructed for biocompatibility. Obviously, we need to have some flexibility, and that has to be balanced with toughness. And then the other unique thing about the biodegradable polymers is that the rate of degradation can be varied by how long and how tightly the bonds are created between the polymers. Now, the polymers that are used in the Archimedes stent degrade primarily from hydrolysis. So this is just water degradation. So the water invades the polymer and degrades and breaks the chain into smaller segments, and therefore they slough off. The reason we can see the stent is because it's infused with barium. So I'm going to end this very brief presentation here with a small video of the degrading stent. Now, this is not representative of any particular degradation rate because the stent was specially constructed. It's a time-lapse video and it has an altered degradation model. So this degradation rate is approximately accelerated by 80,000 times. So this is just a brief 12-minute clip, 12-second clip of the stent degrading in a tube through which is flowing water. So you can see the helical parts separating and opening, degrading, and then eventually passing. That is the extent of my presentation here. And I'll turn it over for a few words from Carlos before we move directly into the procedure room with Professor Kunda. I would say that I think you all are instructed, if you have questions, to pose them, and we will be watching and monitoring the questions and direct them to the appropriate person to answer them.
So thank you. Very interesting presentation, Paul. And so now I will do an introduction regarding the Archimedes stent. I will share my presentation. I will try to do do you have my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will talk about a little bit about the data that we have already with the Archimedes biodegradable biliary and pancreatic stent, where we are, what we have now in the literature. So this is my disclosure. So the endoscopic treatment of obstructive biliopancreatic disease is challenging, especially in altered surgical anatomy. Traditionally, these obstructions are managed by plastic or fully covered metallic stents, requiring repeat ERCP. So for plastic stents, we need a replacement every 2 to 3 months, and for fully covered self-expandable metallic stents, we need to remove in 6 to 9 months. Currently, biodegradable stents are an attractive therapeutic option for pancreatobiliary disease and provide improved patency while avoiding the need of reintervention. So the Archimedes is a novel biodegradable stent for the management of pancreaticobiliary obstruction, particularly useful in altered surgical anatomy. Can be placed endoscopically or percutaneously, provide improved patency. Yes?
I don't mind. I hope you don't mind me interrupting you. I think that Rusty may be ready to start, and perhaps we can have this a little after he does a procedure or so. Does that sound okay to you?
It's okay. It's okay.
Hey, Dr. Yaten, this is Eric. Just one quick point that for Dr. Kunda, I know that he's going to be using the Unity device, which is a different biodegradable device. So we have the Archimedes device, which we're presenting now, which is essentially a replacement for plastic stents. And we have a new device called Unity, and the Unity device is what we think is more of a replacement for large bore drainage for metal stents. And I know that Dr. Kunda is going to be performing a number of cases using the Unity device today. So we're hoping that this is the first kind of coming out of the two different devices, one for replacing plastic devices and the other for replacing metal devices. And it's really an exciting time for us to finally offer a full turnkey solution, for the endoscopists, the hepatobiliary surgeons, the liver transplant surgeons, et cetera, that are finding a real opportunity to use this technology.
Agreed. The Unity stent is a bioabsorbable metal stent. It's made from magnesium and it's a balloon deployable stent. So without any further ado, why don't we immediately join with Rusty. Carlos, can you stop sharing?
Yes. Sure.
We'll get to Carlos's discussion about the stent in a little bit, and I think we have Rusty all ready to go.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. Welcome from snowy Brussels, unexpectedly now in March. If you can share the screen image from my computer with the audience. So I would like to show you the case we have prepared as a case number 1 today. We have a 58 years old gentleman who was a little bit more than 1 year ago operated with pylorus preserving pancreatitis in modification and surgical, post-surgical anatomy in modification of traversal longmire, which is another variation of pylorus preserving pancreatitis. Patient was operated with a poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma, which originated in malignant transformation of IPMN. His bile ducts at the time of surgery were not dilated. Common hepatic duct was around 4 millimeter large. And he recently, around 12 months after the procedure, presented with chills, shivers, dark urine, and elevated liver function test. We have performed 2 weeks ago index ERCP after pancreatitis at surgically altered anatomy, and it showed very tight hepaticojejunostomy in diameter less than 1 millimeter, very difficult to pass with any instruments, and we have also seen dilation of intrahepatic bile ducts. We dilated very, very slowly with a 4 millimeter balloon and placed double pigtail stent. This is how it looked like. Really, anastomosis was rather small, very difficult to identify. We need to help a lot when fishing for this anastomosis, help us a lot with fluoroscopy. And on the right side of the screen, I hope you can appreciate cholangiogram showing dilation of intrahepatic bile duct. We dilated it, and this is how it looks like after the dilation. So now if we can switch to endoscopy view.
For the audience, I think might not be obvious that in the post-surgical setting, this approach to this is through a gastrojejunostomy.
Yes, actually, this is duodenojejunostomy because it's a pylorus preserving anatomy, but it resembles gastrojejunostomy. We have afferent limb, efferent limb. So you need, again, identify which one is which. And for this case, we typically do not use duodenoscope, but we rather prefer to use forward-viewing therapeutic endoscope with large channel. So now I have 3.7 millimeter channel large therapeutic endoscope. We can see now, and I hope you can appreciate anastomosis, which is better visible. It's still quite tight, but the patient recovered in terms of liver function test, and you can see that that we can identify it much easier. So the goal would be to obtain cholangiogram, perform balloon dilation, and we would place biodegradable metal stent into the anastomosis. The reason why we are choosing this approach is basically because it's a post-surgical anatomy, surgically altered anatomy, which is which might be very challenging to get back to this place. It's not suitable for every patient. We deal when we are performing surgical procedures. We are trying to do reconstruction, which is endoscopy friendly, so we can get back at any given time when needed.
Rosti,
Yes.
we have a question about degradation profiles, and maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about which situation you would want a stent that degrades very rapidly or one that persists for a longer period of time.
Can we switch, Flora? In this case, I would definitely prefer, degradation, which is at least like 3 months. We would like to help and promote, provide kind of like a scaffolding to newly formed hepatococcygeostomy. I think we still have to be a bit careful how long we would like to have these stents in situ, because we would obviously like to avoid any kind of hyperplasia of the mucosa around.
So in this case, is it an issue where you will place the top of the stent in relation to the confluence of the intrahepatic ducts?
No, it shouldn't be, because in this case, in Unity B stent, actually it's favorable that stent is not covered. Can you see fluoroscopy? I hope that you can see that.
We can.
I'm just flushing with water, and I will try to get inside with wire. I'm a little bit in angled position. So for us, it's favorable that the stent is uncovered. So we have done it before at surgically altered anatomy, also in hepatococcygeostomies. For cholangiocarcinoma, we use Unity B in rather tight or intrahepatic positions, and we didn't have a issue with the occlusion of side branches.
So I wonder if all of the panel members would choose a forward viewing scope in this environment, or do some prefer to have a side viewing duodenoscope? I don't know if we have Sundeep.
So I believe the approach that Ratis is doing is really better because of this position of the anastomosis. I believe it's a difficult case. My question that I have to Ratis is, if once you are inside, do you prefer to perform a balloon dilation before to put the Unity B metallic stent biodegradable?
Yes, absolutely. That's an excellent question, which I will also comment a little bit later on about, because in this case, we had a very big difficulty because of angulation, even to pass dilation balloon at index ERCP. And Unity B stent is a metallic stent which is not self-expandable. It's over the balloon inserted stent like we did maybe 30 years ago, last time in endoscopy, but we have now again a metallic stent in digestive endoscopy, which is balloon expandable. So it's basically preloaded over the balloon, and we certainly do try to kind of avoid friction when we are placing this stent through the anastomosis. I would definitely prefer that we pre-dilate this anastomosis and then dilate further on when the stent is in a position. Let's switch to the room view.
Yes, just one comment. Yeah. I had the chance to use some Unity B in my unit, and the balloon itself works for open the balloon, and the force of the balloon will not help you to perform some kind of dilations. Could help in some cases, but in difficult cases will not help to you to perform big dilation of the stenosis. So it's I prefer also to perform a balloon dilation before to put the stent. Moreover, when the stenosis is tight.
I absolutely agree. You know, you have to avoid any friction and be on the safe side to avoid dislodgement. You know, in this case we are using forward-viewing endoscope, but we will see maybe in next case that when we are using duodenoscope, we need to avoid any conflict with elevator of the duodenoscope and being very careful while introducing this device. Here you can see a table. I hope you can appreciate it on your video and the screen. Basically, balloon is calibrated, and you can decide how much you want to dilate or pre-dilate stent once it's on the place. And if you show me stent itself,
it's a bit dark in the room. I don't know if you have a light source you could put on it.
We now deviated from that position.
For the audience, that was a table showing the pressure and the resulting diameter of the stent. So what we understand is that the balloon is really intended to inflate the stent, not dilate the stricture.
Zoom in, please. And if you look now very carefully, you can see and hopefully you can appreciate that how the stent is braided. You know, it's uncovered stent, but you will see. Yeah.
Do you have some light that you could shine on that? It wasn't that visible. I don't know if you have an external light or if you can turn the room lights on briefly.
Okay, I'll show you in a moment. You will see it actually in an endoscopic view. Please give me dilation balloon. I'll show it to you, and I think it will be very nicely visible, because now basically intention is that the stent will be across the anastomosis. So I would be able to show you how stent looks in magnification of endoscopic view. Okay, can we switch to endoscopy view? So now we're gonna pre-dilate. I will, considering the diameter of the bile duct, I will pre-dilate up to 6 millimeter.
Rosti, can you safely dilate the bile duct to a diameter larger than that you see on the screen?
Yeah, on the screen we are around 6 millimeter on the common hepatic duct.
Is it safe to dilate larger than that, or would you say that, or how much you could dilate over?
In this case, I wouldn't be much hesitating even to go like a 2 millimeters above. Generally, we don't recommend it, but this patient, after the surgery, this duct was dilated a couple of weeks ago on the diameter. So there is certain elasticity. It responded well on that, let's say, gentle stent treatment. Okay, I'm going down with the dilation balloon.
And for the audience, Rosti,
yes,
they're asking about the endoscope. I'm assuming you're using a therapeutic EGD scope. Is that a correct assumption?
I'm using therapeutic EGD scope with a 3.7 millimeter channel, the newest generation of therapeutic endoscope. Okay, let's go up to 11 up. So now we are pre-dilating up to 6 millimeter. Pressure control with a balloon. Standard biliary ERCP balloon.
Are you using water or contrast inside the balloon?
In this case, we are using contrast.
Can we see the fluoroscopic image better?
Yeah. Okay,
so you're
we are pre-dilating. We don't need to bear much too long there. We can exfoliate. You see that it nicely widened, and we kind of minimize the friction, hopefully. Because we have a gastroscope, so we have to be more careful with the wire. We don't have a comfort to hold it with the elevator.
Rosti?
Yes, I'm listening, Paul. Yeah.
As you're placing the stent,
Yeah.
you'll have to keep in mind where the confluence was, because you no longer have contrast in there to identify the top location of the stent placement. Can you talk to the audience about how you will locate the top of the stent?
Yeah, actually, I do not mind even go about the confluence. You know, stent is uncovered, and I know that it will not occlude the left side. Now I'm in the right hepatic duct, but it will not include it will not occlude, sorry, left hepatic duct. So I feel comfortable even to going through that. Okay, let's open stent.
And the audience has a question about
Yes.
whether or not you're using propofol or a general anesthetic.
We are using, in this case, general anesthesia. In this case, because it's a surgically altered anatomy, you can see that the endoscope is in kind of like a semi-long or long position, which gives more discomfort to a patient. I think technically he would also tolerate in propofol, but definitely the index ERCP was very difficult, very tight stricture. We really need to find the anastomosis. So it was hard work, and it would be much uncomfortable for patient. But at this moment, patient is intubated and in general anesthesia.
And I assume from the fluoro image, they are supine.
Yeah. Yes, yes. We keep patients in, especially when you are doing hyoanatomy or patient are intubated, we typically keep them in a supine position. We don't shift them to the prone position. If patient would be in propofol, he would be in a prone position. Okay, now we are loading stent unity B over the wire. It's very important that the stent doesn't get wet, so it doesn't glide. It doesn't need to be wet like other types of stents. And also you need to protect the stent when you are passing the biopsy channel, so there is no friction. Otherwise, stent get deformed or dislodged from the catheter. It's preloaded over the catheter, which you will very soon see also on the endoscopic view. Okay. Let's see. Okay, slowly. Any other questions from the audience?
Well, I have two questions, my friend. First one,
Yes.
what about the contraindications of using this stent? Is there anyone, or there is no contraindications for using this kind of biodegradable metallic stent? That's the first question. And the second question is about the inflammatory tissue that can be, can appear after the use of this metallic stent, biodegradable. Is there any granulation
Yes.
tissue or inflammatory tissue? What do you see in your experience?
So far we haven't experienced like a major, inflammatory response like with the other biodegradable stent we used in the past, especially those based on polydioxanone, braided designs. Indeed, the experience even globally is rather limited. I would be certainly, as for the contraindication, I would be probably hesitant to use it for indeterminate strictures exactly for this reason, because we still do not know what we are dealing with, and we would like to avoid any secondary changes. But otherwise, stent is uncovered, and I do not see much other contraindication. You can see now on the endoscopic view the tip of the balloon catheter with preloaded stent, which sits on this balloon.
So it's a bit tricky to get around the angulation, but I see that you are getting the stent to penetrate easily.
That's exactly why we did pre-dilation. Still, it's not as easy as it seems. And of course, I don't want to anyhow compromise the stent. Okay, now it looks much better. I think that I'm deep enough. Can we switch to fluoro? I hope that you can appreciate on the resolution of our fluoroscopy the proximal and distal edge of the stent.
Can you magnify more, Ross?
One of the disadvantages of this stent is, or relative disadvantage, is that it's not so opaque on a fluoroscopy. But what you can see in just about the tip of the endoscope, you can see markers, which are showing distal end of the stent, and also deep in the bile duct, you can see another marker. So we basically see only proximal and distal end. Sandy will later speak also about the details of this stent and technology. So that's something which is given due to that. But this is excellent scaffolding for keeping this biodegradable stent in place and in situ. Now we are going to dilate stent, which is already in a position. I'm not much concerned about the left hepatic duct. We are going deeper in the right hepatic duct, but I'm comfortable now with the position, and we can start to dilate.
Can you magnify the fluoroscopic image, Rusty?
Yes. Sorry. Okay.
Now that's better. It's still challenging a little bit to see the stent.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Can you talk about how much of the stent to leave in the duodenum, or how you position it relative to a stricture? Or there you can see the waste, just the waste is going away, yes?
Okay, I hope that you can see now that balloon is nicely dilating stent on a fluoroscopy. We keep it for about 60 seconds like this, and then stent will be dilated enough. And hopefully you have also seen how markers like widened or separated, proximal distal marker. I don't know, is it clear?
Yes, Rusty, it appears the top of the stent is well inside the right hepatic duct. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. We are basically going deeper in the anterior segments of the right hepatic duct. Okay, we can deflate. Let's switch to endoscopy view. Deflate. It's
Very
also
nice.
important that balloon is completely deflated before you start to remove it. And this is how the design of the stent or construction of the stent looks like. Let's push back in.
Can you comment, Rusty? It appears that there's still a persistent waste on the anastomosis. Is that correct?
Yes, but we were using dilation up to 7 millimeters. That waste, that's intentional. I do not want and need it wider. So I, rather than overinflate it and going over to 9 or 10 millimeters, I decided to keep it on this level and use that supporting structure of the stent with it to keep it dilated and have it like this over next at least 90 days, up to 7 millimeters. So that's what I've shown on that table. I hope that it was seen on the packaging, where we can see the calibration of the balloon. And this is how it looks like. So patient basically is done and finished for now. Again, this is a patient with surgical altered anatomy, forward viewing scope, and strictured hepaticojejunostomy.
Will you perform some type
Another
of
question about the
control?
case.
Will you perform some type of a control in the future to assess the
Yes.
effect or
Patient
monitor
is-
the degradation?
Yeah, patient is leaving tomorrow for vacation. He's gonna ski in Austria. So when he comes back, I'll see him, just control liver function test, and then control him clinically. And later on, if there is any appearance of dilated ducts or elevated liver function test, I may control it endoscopically. But for now, this is intention to leave it as it is for now.
Very nice demonstration.
Okay, so I leave you now to presentation of Carlos, so you can continue. Thank you.
So I'm coming back. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay. So the Archimedes is a novel biodegradable stent for the management of pancreaticobiliary obstructions, particularly useful in altered surgical anatomy. So it can be placed endoscopically or percutaneously and provides improved patency while avoiding the need of reintervention for stent removal or replacement. So these are the features of the stent. So we have the 6 French, the 2.0 millimeter version, and also we have the 10 French and 8 French from 2.6 to 3.4 millimeter versions. So the length goes from 40 to 25 millimeters, and the shape is helicoidal, tapered tip, and terminal flaps both ends, as you can see here in the image. So the other features that Archimedes have is it's a 3 degradation profiles with different proprietary blends. So we have fast degradation, medium degradation, and slow degradation. The difference is the fast degradation is 12 days. The medium degradation is 20 days. And the slow degradation have 11 weeks. The difference from the degradation is the materials that are used for elaborate the stent. It means in fast degradation, they use the PDX and polyethylene glycol with barium sulfate, and the medium degradation use PDX and barium sulfate, and 11 weeks the slow degradation is polylactic caprolactone 3-methylene carbonate and barium sulfate. That's why the degradation are totally different. So what about the indications per degradation? So this is some recommendations from the company. I believe in the future we will have more indications and probably new indications of using these stents. So for fast degradation stents, it means in around 12 days. So we can use for underlying disease with obstructed biliary duct, like cholelithiasis or cholelithiasis, acute biliary pancreatitis, cholangitis, and modified anatomy procedures involving biliary and pancreatic ducts, such as liver transplantations Whipple and alike. So the for medium degradation, we have similar indications. However, we can use also in biliary leaks, cystic duct leaks, resectable common bile duct obstruction, cholangitis, and modified anatomy as in fast degradation. It will depend of if the patient has been already manipulated, for example, in procedures with a stenosis or that has been previously treated by other kind of treatments or stents. But I believe that the main indication will be for this kind of patients will be for sure patients with cystic or biliary leaks after surgical treatment or any other kind of situation. But it goes very well and work very well. And for slow degradation, we have also the same indications. However, we can use also in benign biliary structures and malignant biliary structures. And we can have some kind of adverse events as acute pancreatitis or post-ERCP pancreatitis. We can use also in chronic pancreatitis and pancreatic duct structures. So the contraindications are related to ERCP procedure, inability to cannulate or pass the stent, cardiovascular disease that perform a contraindication for the ERCP or biliary stent placement precluding cholangiography. So the clinical outcomes and utility in endoscopy. So a few papers in the literature. So we have this paper in gastrointestinal endoscopy in 2018 with 53 patients, a single arm, just to see the safety and efficacy of the study of the stent. So the procedural success was achieved in 98% with technical success of 100%. No repeat ERCP for re-stenting or retrieval. Those stents 1 week showed a 25 procedural reduction from 51.2 to 38 micromole in 27 patients with biliary obstructions. The quality of life score improved from 7.9 to at 24 hours per procedure with a baseline of 2.7 and remaining sustained for more than 30 days. And 9 procedures related adverse events with conservatively managed, no stent-related serious adverse events. So this is the complications after procedures. More of them were pancreatitis or elevation of amylase, bleeding in 4 cases, 1 cardiac arrhythmia, known device-related migration of cholangitis in 1 case, another in 1 case. So it's really difficult to evaluate if these kind of adverse events that were not difficult adverse events were related exactly to the stent, but for sure were reported in this study. So another study from Spain, very interesting also in they evaluated, this was a multi-center study. They evaluated 53 patients, 3 kind of stents, and the technical success was 100%, and the clinical success was 77.8%, with 35 patients were followed for a median of 26 weeks. 9 procedures it showed adverse events. It means 17%. All mild adverse events, including 1 uneventful stent-related event that was external migration. But as you can see, the overall score and median range and various indications were excellent in most of the patients, more than 80% of the patients. So, and the results were very interesting. So, this is another study with in the Italy from my good friend Alessandro Repici. So they show it also that the biodegradation of the new biliary and pancreatic stent is reliable and in line with expected times and technically successful in a variety of indications. So they just measure the complete degradation, the time of degradation, and how if it was really the time of degradation. So they use it in different kind of situations in biliary tract, and the conclusion was the technical successful was very high and with very good results in this kind of patients. Also, Archimedes has been used in patients during surgery, so in liver transplant to prevent biliary leak. So in this study, for example, with 20 patients, a retrospective study showed that Archimedes internal absorbable biliary stent can be safely used in both living and deceased donor liver transplants to prevent bile leak, and has been used also with robotic pancreaticoduodenectomy, using these stents and showing an effective strategy in reducing post-operative pancreatic fistula occurrence in high-risk patients. So we have a lot of advantage of Archimedes stents. It's a new therapeutic approach for drainage of biliary and pancreatic obstructions, degradation profile. Removal replacement is avoided, reducing cost in more than 40% with morbidity and complications of the intervention. Continuous calibration, helical design, anatomically bioflow and enhanced positioning, a smooth cannulation with the tapered tip, and minimize migration flaps and at both ends. So it help really to have very good results and diminish the risk of migration in this kind of with this kind of stent. Advantage over tested plastic stent. We can see the different degradation profiles, less stent occlusion, with degradation, ergonomic sinusoidal helical channel design, improved simulated flow rates, and better simulated migration resistance. The similarity is equivalent to cross resistance and points to consider that biodegradable stents have proven comparable with SEMs in terms of radial force jet. It may decrease simultaneously with degradation. An introducer sleeve is required for deployment of 8 and 10 French stents. The readjustment with grasping forces or an expansion balloon may be required. Foreign body reaction to polydioptenon reports of severe hyperplastic tissue stenosis associated with esophageal use. However, we don't have this kind of reports until now in the literature with the use in the biliary tract, and probably could be by the epithelium that is a little bit different between the esophagus and the biliary tract. So acute cholangitis also in up to 27% of percutaneous places and in 23% of endoscopically inserted biodegradable stents. So some case presentations. So this is one case from our unit. 35 years old male with past medical history of laparoscopic cholecystectomy 2 weeks ago with biliary leak. Presents abdominal pain, the right hypochondric and epigastric regions, jaundice, coluria, and unintentional weight loss. So the procedure was ERCP, sphincterotomy, stone removal, and slow degradation activities biliary stent due to delayed biliary emptying. So you can see here, so how was the management of this patient? You can see here the stent is in the fluoroscopy. You can see the stent very well. So to put the stent is not different from other stents. It's a really resistant stent, and this patient goes well, and we didn't need it to come back the patient to remove the stent. So just with the biodegradation was enough. This is another case, 27 years old female with no past history, medical history, comes with abdominal pain in the right hypochondriaca and epigastric regions, nausea, jaundice, chlorine, and fever. So the U.S. showed a common bile duct with biliary sludge, gallbladder with gallstones. So the procedure was an ERCP sphincterotomy, biliary sludge removal, and 6 French pancreatic stent placement as to prevent acute pancreatitis due to the risk of acute pancreatitis in this patient. So you can see here again the 6 French stent. You can see here. So we are doing now a study evaluating plastic versus biodegradable stent in your unit to prevent acute pancreatitis. So we are almost ready to finish, and we didn't saw any difference between the use of biodegradable stent. The unique situation is that we reduce the cost of this patient. So this is a live case that we do few months ago. It was a 36 years old male with past medical history of hypertension and laparoscopic cholecystectomy 10 years ago, and comes with abdominal pain, epigastric region with irradiation to the right hypochondriac region, nausea, vomiting, jaundice, pruritus, unintentional weight loss, the MRCP dilated bile duct with biliary stones, and a CT scan, a pancreatic head lesion. So the procedure was a double guide wire biliary cannulation, sphincterotomy, biliary sludge removal, pancreatic stent placement, and biopsy of the papilla. So this is the procedure that we do at that moment. So this was ampulectomy. So I will advance a little bit. And what we do with was to remove the papilla, and then to use the biodegradable stent in these cases. So this is the cannulation of the biliary tract, and we had also a cannulation of the pancreatic of the pancreas. So in this case, we didn't use we didn't have the 6 French stent, because at that moment we would use it. It's better because the risk of complication is real low, and for sure in this kind of cases we need to use not a fast degradation. We need to use a slow degradation stent, or 20 days the medium degradation stent. But this is the way that you can put the stent and how it works very well. So you can see here the stent, and this is a kind of indication that we believe in the future we can have with UniTV. I didn't talk about UniTV. I believe there's another lecture about UniTV, but this procedure was performed in November 2021. So we use UniTV to use by US guided antegrade stenting with the UniTV and balloon stent in a patient with a stenosis. So you can see here we already had hepatico gastrostomy and anastomosis, biliodigestive anastomosis, and you can see here after removing the plastic stent, once the fistula was was there, we put the metallic stent, the Unity B stent. And you can see here how to deploy the Unity B, and we come back just with a cholangioscope through the fistula, the hepatopancreatobiliar, just to see the stent, if the stent was well placed. And you can see here, so we are advancing, and here you can see very well the stent. You see here, and after the treatment, the patient didn't need any kind of second dilation or any obstruction after the treatment. So it's in conclusion, I believe biodegradable stents are a novel, safe, and effective available therapeutic tool for the management of pancreatic obstructive disorders, especially in those exhibiting pathological or physiological narrow anatomy. It can potentially reduce adverse events and costs due to the avoidance of reintervention, making it a preferable approach when treating patients with increasing risk, such as those with multiple comorbidities and or poor follow-up, psychiatric, alcoholic patients. So thank you so much for your attention, and glad to invite you to our live course that will be in June 2023 in Guayaquil. It's presential, and we hope to see you soon there. Thank you.
Carlos, thanks so much. That was a wonderful presentation. There are a couple questions from the audience, and I think we can put them to the panel in general. And I think you may have addressed this in general terms about the rate of migration, particularly of the Archimedes. Do we have comments or data from any of the users related to this?
Yes, the risk of migration is really low. When we see the literature, I believe just one case was related with migration because of the design of the stent. I believe it's very interesting and make it less with less probability of to have a migration. So I'm not so sure what's happening in that case reported of migration, and also I think it was a perforation because of the migration. And yeah, why not? Because the stent is very, the stent is tight. It's not too much flexible stent as the plastic stent, but it's the rigidity of the stent is good and works very well. And the design, I believe, makes it with less risk of migration, even inside or outside. So this is why we don't have too much reports of migration. Also, we don't have a big series of plastic stent, but for sure it's the design that helps in these cases to diminish the migration risk.
Very good. Moving on with the next question. I think it refers more to chemistry, so Eric may want to speak to this. It relates to other fluids other than water related to degradation of the Archimedes stent. And I know that the stent has been tested in, Eric, was it bile from bovine bile, I think has been used. I don't know that there's any particular data to suggest that degradation has changed, whether it's bile. The real question was, does blood affect the rate of degradation? I want to say no, but I think that we'll ask Eric for some technical information.
Yeah. I think, Paul, the biggest things that impact degradation are really around the physiological forces that are impacting on the stent. And those are the main drivers for degradation. But ultimately, whether it's a high alkaline or high acidic environment, you don't see a huge variation in terms of overall degradation.
There's physical factors affecting the stent, so like pressure point can increase the rate of degradation, but changes in pH or composition of the fluid really don't affect the rate of degradation of the Archimedes stent. Now, there's another question referring to the Unity B, and this is when dilating the balloon post-stent deployment, is there a chance of perforation compared with gradual dilation seen with the self-expanding types? I think that this primarily relates to the radial force of the stent. Most of us are probably gentle dilating malignant strictures because you can then cause tearing of the tissue and local trauma. But I don't know what the radial force of the stent is. I would think that you saw Rosti choose a size of dilation that was comparable to the diameter of the duct. So in theory, I think that we should see that the dilation was actually with the balloon was larger than what we observed with the post-deployment of the stent. So I would think that the stent, dilating the stent is not going to be a point of perforation. Both Carlos and Rosti both alluded to the fact that the stent is not meant to be the dilating force of the stricture, that the predilation is meant to perform that. So I think there would be little chance of causing perforation by dilating the stent. Carlos, you have comments?
Yeah. So I totally agree with you, Paul. The risk of perforation with the stent is really, I believe, is zero. I'm not so sure, but until now, first because we don't perform balloon dilation with the balloon of the stent. The balloon of the stent is just to
Open the stent.
Yeah, to open the stent and just to less the stent, but doesn't have any radial force, any kind of force to perform a dilation. And second, the risk of perforation can come from the first balloon dilation. It means we can have a perforation, but not because of the stent. The stent doesn't have the balloon of the stent doesn't have this kind of force to perform a perforation. And second, if you had or have a perforation because of the balloon, put the stent, and the stent will make it his work. It means there's not it's not a big deal to have a perforation in the tract. Sometimes when we have a big perforation, yes, why not? But we can solve this putting the stent. It's not a great or big risk of as an adverse event, but with the balloon of the stent, the risk of perforation is zero.
So
I think, Paul, just to add to that point, if it's okay, is that with this fast absorbing version of the Unity, it'll have slightly less radial force than a standard metal stent. The medium version that we're working on actively and that we plan to start clinical studies on this year will have a radial force equal to that of a stainless steel or cobalt chromium balloon expandable stent. So it's just to make sure everyone's aware of that. It's just because of some of the technical attributes of the material.
There's a question actually about the degradation of the Unity B, the metal stent. So combining these two ideas, when using the Unity B, the resizing or the dilation of the target stricture is always performed with pre-dilation. And then the balloon is merely to expand the Unity B and hold open the dilation that was previously performed. And this relates to proprietary properties of the stent itself and its relative radial force compared to others. I think I would refer the audience to an excellent paper written by Isayama some years ago about radial force and axial force and how the two are related to different stents. It would be interesting to have some specific data about the radial force but one can assume because it's a balloon dilated stent that the force is less, and that therefore the stent is more of a scaffold to hold open the stricture once it's been dilated. Now, there are questions also about the degradation of the unity B. I'm not a chemist or a metallurgist, but we all know that magnesium is a very reactive metal, and this is exploited in this application for the stent to degrade and just pass as part, as molecular parts through the digestive system, not unlike conceptually what happens with the Archimedes stent. All right, so I think we're ready to join Rosti in the procedure room. Rosti, are you ready for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Paul, for excellent discussion. I hope I can join at the end the panel discussion myself. We have prepared second case. Actually, we had prepared different case. Unfortunately, that patient deteriorated due to other comorbidities, and we needed to pull him from the program, where we plan to do bilateral Archimedes stenting. Also, patient with post-surgical anatomy, with surgically altered anatomy after operated extrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma. Therefore, we use different case now. It's a 59 years old patient who underwent laparoscopic cholecystectomy in October 2021 with perioperative injury and suture of right hepatic duct, or what was believed to be right hepatic duct. Post-operatively, patient developed bile leak with the need of endoscopic intervention. And we have identified there is a iatrogenic lesion of dorsal branch of right hepatic duct. There is rather low confluence of dorsal and ventral branches of right hepatic duct. So classification of this lesion, as you can see on the screen, according to Strasberg, Stuart-Way, and Harvard classifications, this is done at index ERCP. And we've been dealing since then with refractory ischemic iatrogenic stricture of dorsal branch of right hepatic duct. So this is how it looks like. I hope you can appreciate on your screens on the left side. You can see clips at the side of the dorsal branch of the right hepatic duct. So we see dorsal and ventral branches of right hepatic duct. And on the right image, you can see stricture itself. This is not from the index ERCP. This is probably 3 months later, when patient developed this rather refractory stricture, and we treated him with a combination of several stentings, balloon dilations. We also performed cholangioscopy just to identify how the lesion looks like, if there is any kind of debris. This is the latest cholangiogram done roughly 3 months ago, when we see slight improvement, but still present stenosis, which cannot be left without stenting. We can change to the endoscopy view and also fluoroscopy view. Okay, and change it to fluoro. I'm already in the bile duct. I removed previously inserted 10 French stent. I will turn off artificial intelligence, which we have in our fluoroscopy, and you can see clearly the filling of both dorsal and ventral branches. my role would be to come selectively to the dorsal branch, where I do believe I am right now. Am I or am I not? So now I'm about 1 centimeter above confluence of hepatic ducts. I will try to adjust the view for you so you can see it better this way. Okay. And this is you can clearly see that there is a relation to those clips, which basically are causing this ischemic stricture. In biliary surgery, we see these strictures typically 12 months and even up to 5 years to develop slowly. In this case, it developed rather fast, and you can still see the presence of stricture there. Okay, may I have a guide wire, visible line? Any questions about this case?
Rosti, while you're doing this, can you talk to the audience a little bit about how you're thinking about the choice of a stent here?
Yes,
height, length?
obviously, yes. Why I'm choosing this stent is basically we had him multiple times on a plastic stent. We achieved certainly improvement. It's much better than it was before. We worked very intensely about it, but we have a need to use something of a larger diameter. And we were not able to achieve a diameter which would be sufficient enough to have this, to keep it open. It's not really duct which is very friendly to multiple plastic stents. You can see that distal common bile duct is somewhere, it's somewhere around 4 to 5 millimeters in diameter. Using other special stents for benign strictures, the stricture is quite high. And why I'm not using, for example, Archimedes in this stent, in this case, I really would like to have a stent a bit deeper if it's a plastic stent like Archimedes, and I would like to avoid any bending of stent. We should certainly also discuss about this, about the stiffness of Archimedes and potential, patient's sensation of any kind of discomfort, pain, or eventually pressure in the duct. So I try when I'm using Archimedes not to use it through very sharp bendings. Dilation balloon. So we will dilate now stricture the same as we did before.
So while you're doing this, Rosti, there are some questions from the audience about the radial force of the Unity B. Eric
Yes.
has provided some specific stuff about it. The current device has 70% of the radial force of a standard vascular balloon that's used to deploy balloon expanded stents. And their Q3 is working on devices that will have a radial force equivalent to standard metal stents used today, which I would say is quite variable. Would this be a place where you would try and place a intraductal Unity B stent?
Yes, exactly. I'm going to place intraductal Unity B stent. We use it typically with these hilar and very high intrahepatic obstructions. And what also Carlos has shown and what we have actually done together in Guayaquil was the case of EUS-guided antegrade stenting, because that's actually where we see the major benefit and probably future of these stents, to use them in surgical altered anatomy and in widely expanding the field of interventional EUS using it as antegrade approach. So you can rely that the stent will degraded, biodegraded, and doesn't need to be removed, and you can count on it. In this case, because we are really at the branching of dorsal right hepatic duct, so I don't want to use any kind of covered stent or stent specific design, I would like to avoid, again, similar to the previous case, we can deflate balloons.
Rusty, could you, we see you're dilating. What size dilation balloon did you just use and perform on?
I use 6 millimeter balloon with a pressure of 11 atmosphere in this particular balloon. This picture, we have been working on it quite a while, so it's not as rigid, it's not as refractory as it was before. But we had patient this morning, which was like a backup patient for this session, where we, even while using 12 atmosphere and 40 atmosphere at 4 millimeter, we were not able to dilate it because these ischemic strictures could be really refractory, and then you need to use special angioplasty balloons and go with a pressure over 20 just to make it happen. So I pre-dilated the bile duct at a place of lesion. I have on my second screen, I have reference image, so now I know where to go with the stent. And we are preparing another Unity B stent.
I'm a big fan of the concept of intraductal stenting with metal stents.
Yes.
This looks like an incredible, great opportunity.
We can certainly also look and discuss why not place intraductally and not transpapillary Archimedes. But I think that we should still explore that area. Again, for me, why I decided rather to go this way than using Archimedes, I would like to avoid any bending of the stent. And I would like to also achieve larger diameter.
And do you intend to inflate the Unity B to what diameter?
I would go around 7 millimeter, around 5 atmosphere, I believe.
One thing that's important to remember on these stents, especially the balloon expandable stents, is if you don't open them up to 8, 9, or 10 millimeters in diameter, they're going to have limited radial force. And it's just so that everyone's aware of that. That's really something that's critical for these particular devices.
Okay, we had small technical difficulty, but it's also very good to discuss this troubleshooting. As I said before, the catheter itself and stent itself shouldn't be much in contact with the fluid, otherwise will stent slip from the balloon catheter where it's preloaded on. But we had big problems to pass the wire, so we obviously needed to flush the channel. So now I'm going, and you can see that I'm passing the stent through the papilla. Let's change to the endoscopy view. At this moment, it's very important that you try to minimize your work with the elevator, just to avoid breaking of the stent and its misconfiguration, which can very easily happen. Let's switch to fluoro. Yes,
Rusty. So you put the stent without using the elevator. That's correct?
Yes, I'm trying to avoid use of elevator. Let's pull a little bit wide. Okay, now I'm beyond stricture. I hope you can appreciate it on the fluoroscopy, which is magnified. And now we are going to dilate. Let's go up to 5 atmosphere. Yeah, slowly, just one by one. And now again, let's focus on fluoroscopy. You can see splitting markers and separating markers, both proximally and distally, while the stent and expansion of the balloon. And you can see on the left side from the balloon, those clips, which also corresponds with the area of the stricture.
Rusty, do you consider it important where along the stent you're positioning it relative to the stricture? Is it important to have it in the middle, or can it be toward one end of the stent?
Currently, yeah, it's an excellent question. At this moment, we have only this size of stents available in terms of length, sorry. So we cannot choose shorter stents. Probably I would choose shorter stent in terms of positioning where the stricture should be. We can certainly, we don't need to bear in Unity B to keep it in the middle, but ideally, yes, the expansion force would be there. But by the design, it can be also, you know, in proximity of the edges of the stent, not completely, but I feel that it's safe to place it around, 1 centimeter from the edge of stent. That's what our limited experience is. We used it again several times in hepaticojejunostomies, where it worked very nicely, and we were able to dilate even patients with a recurrent disease, and did not require even deflate.
So you finished dilating the stent, is that correct?
Yes, I finished dilating stent. So now you can hopefully appreciate how the stent is infusion balloon.
So Ross,
push a wire in.
I'm going to anticipate the audience and ask if you can show or demonstrate or measure the area of the stricture and how open the stent has become.
I will do now control fluoroscopy, but of course we can do it also on calibrated, but we have seen that balloon has expanded to 6-7 millimeters, which, considering the size of the duct, it's good enough. We never experienced dilated this branch more than it's now. So I do not certainly want to overinflate. I just want to work at the stricture. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Yeah. Sure.
I certainly think with the Unity B, there's a lot of skill required to understand how much to dilate. I think we just understood from Eric that you can over-dilate the stent as well.
Yes,
so,
stent has a little bit, by our experience, a little bit less expansion force, but once you over-dilate it, it keeps its diameter very nicely, both in these refractory strictures as well as in a malignant stricture, which we have seen. We had a patient with following hepaticojejunostomy with a recurrent malignant disease, and we were able to bridge him for another session of oncologic treatment as well, without need of any additional stenting afterwards. So let's do fluoro, please. So now I'm with a balloon catheter inside the duct. I will just show you with a wedge balloon.
So
do some
Rosti,
cholangioscopy, and you can hopefully appreciate how stent is now dilated, that we have basically almost disappeared the waste of stricture. And you can see also positioning, relative positioning towards the intrahepatic bile ducts.
Rosti, it
Yes.
appears that there's at the proximal end of the stent, the intrahepatic portion, there's
Yeah.
a considerable difference in size between the expanded stent and the
Yes.
size of the bile duct. Does this cause you any concern for intimal hyperplasia?
Not really in this type of stent. I have done multiple, because of this reason, I have done multiple cholangioscopies after implantation of or insertion of Unity B, and we do not see typically as much hyperplasia after these stents. But of course, this needs to be studied, but I'm not particularly concerned at this moment. But again, it's yet to be determined with absolute certainty.
I like the introductal approach, and we touched on it, and I'll ask the other panel members about any experience with placing the Archimedes introductal as opposed to transpapillary. It's a question from the audience.
Well, I think it's not the contraindication. First, because the stent will not be removed. You don't need to remove the stent, for example, in a malignancy or other kind of disease, so you can use it. In this case, Ratislav showed very well how to use this indication because of the biodegradation of the stent. So this is not a contraindication. This is I already do it with some metallic stent in some different cases with malignancy in the rear tract, when we needed to treat these patients and we don't have a large main bile duct, but it works very well. So I think it's a good indication to use inside, and there is no reason why you will not use it.
Very nice. Basti, have you placed any Archimedes introductal?
Yes, I placed a few Archimedes introductal. For me, maybe we can touch this topic during the panel discussion.
Very good.
I think my concern a little bit in those places where it is sharp turns and sharp angulations in the duct. I'm a bit concerned about the stiffness of the stent, but it works excellent, both by its unique design and draining alongside and inside the stent. They just gaining experience, and I would like to be sure that in those very hilar and supra-hilar placements, which are very frequent here, so we are really on the safe side.
Rusty, there's a question from the audience I think you
Yes.
can address. And it relates to oftentimes when metal stents are placed and suction is applied, you can see the stent collapse in diameter. And sometimes this is transient. And the question from the audience is the effect of suctioning on the stent. Does the stent re-expand after suctioning? Does the stent collapse if you suction? Any comments?
Not Unity B. Unity B keeps its shape. It has certain, let's say, elasticity, but it doesn't collapse with application of suction, and it doesn't have that elasticity like we see in other types of nitinol stents. Sandeep will soon speak about the technicality and construction of the stent, which will probably more elucidate, the why is it and how the stent is really unique and provides us to fill some gap on the market.
I confess I lost a little bit of track of time, and I wonder if it's time for us to move on to our second lecture. I'll defer to the program manager here. Perfect. Here we have Sandeep.
Can you see my screen? Hi, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everybody. Are you able to see my screen, Paul?
Yes,
Hello?
we can see your screen. We
Okay.
can see your screen.
So thank you. We saw two very nice cases demonstrated by Rusty and a fantastic talk by Carlos. And I'll be also touching upon biodegradable stents. And I'll be mainly touching upon the second version of the stent, which is the balloon expandable biodegradable. That's the Unity B stent. We all know that standard endoscopic treatment for benign biliary stricture includes incremental placement of multiple plastic stents, or if possible, a fully covered metal stent. Stents placed at ERCP for the management of biliary and pancreatic duct obstruction often can occlude and hence a follow-up ERCP is required for stent removal or stent exchange. And that's where biodegradable stents come into picture because they provide the advantage of no repeat ERCP. It's an attractive alternative to endoscopic option for benign biliary and pancreatic diseases. Currently, the biodegradable stents designs are of two varieties, and we saw Unity B being demonstrated twice, and we also heard a lecture about Archimedes. The Unity B stent is a balloon expandable stent, whereas the Archimedes is a sinusoidal double helical design. It's an intertwined stent, and the bile flows around the two stents twined together with a central hole, which is allowing the wire to go in. So this is the Archimedes stent design. It comes in 6 French, 8 French, and 10 French. The 6 French has a split end towards the diagonal side, where the flaps are in the 8 and 10 French design. They're slightly curved, fluted surface, as Paul was mentioning earlier, and have a tapered tip to slide it inside. The diameters are, as mentioned before, and the lengths can be of variable sizes, which is available from 40 to almost 22 centimeters. They have a central lumen for the guide wire. And if you see the cross section, there are 2 channels spiraled in a double helical configuration along the entire length of the stent. So not only the bile flows through the center, the pancreatic juice through the center, but it's mainly around the surface of the stent. And this is how Archimedes stent in the pancreatic duct would look like. This is a juice flowing out from the pancreatic duct in 2 different patients, which we had placed several years back, a few years back. And endoscopically also, you can see how the stent looks like. It's fairly radiopaque on X-ray at the time of placement. We published our experience along with some of the colleagues from France and Malaysia in the Spanish Journal of Gastro last year. And it's we concluded that this biodegradable Archimedes stent is feasible and safe in pancreatitis diseases. This was a total of about 50 odd patients of both biliary and the pancreatic diseases. Coming to the Unity B expandable biliary system, it's a flexible magnesium-based stent which is pre-mounted on a balloon, and it goes over the wire. So this is how the stent mesh looks like. This is generally about 57 millimeters, just short of 6 centimeters long. It is 5.2 French caliber assembly. The balloon is little longer than the stent, and it can be expanded to the maximum diameter of 10 millimeter. Expansion is controlled by the pressure to which the balloon can be given, and I'll just come in the next slide how it looks like. This is compatible with 035 guide wire. This is how the stent looks when it's crimped over the balloon. So there's balloon inside and the stent outside the balloon. And this is the pressure gauge which comes with it. And when it's attached to the end of the stent, you can actually see the stent expansion. It extends, the expansion occurs more distally, then goes proximally up, which you can see when you fill contrast inside the stent balloon. And once the stent is fully expanded and kept for about a minute or so, as Rusty was pointing out, then we deflate the balloon and very gently withdraw it out so that we don't disturb the stent. I'll show in some of the videos how we do that. Let me show some of the cases that we have done of Unity B balloon. This is the first patient who had a distal benign biliary stricture. It's post-cholecystectomy. The stricture is here, as you can see. And the stent is being deployed. So unlike Rusty, as he was mentioning, we don't pre-dilate with a balloon. We dilate with the balloon and the stent. So there's no 2 double dilatation. It's only single time. So stent goes in with the balloon inside. You can see endoscopically the lower end of the stent. The markers point the upper end of the stent on X-ray. And once you're inside and dilated well, then we deflate the balloon. while we have deploying, we can also see the bubbling happening at the surface of the stent. This is common and not to be concerned about. So stent has to be, the balloon has to be completely deflated before we pull it out. A partially expanded balloon, if you pull it out, the stent can get dislodged. So one has to be wary about it. And this is how the picture looks like in the end. The stent is not very well visible on X-ray, as Rusty was pointing, but if you see carefully, there are two marks here which tell us the lower end of the stent. Another patient who had a distal biliary stricture, and you can see the stricture below, was also managed similarly. The patient has two stents inside which have been pulled out, and then the bile duct is cannulated using a standard sphincterotome, and the guide wire is inside. Over the guide wire, the stent is deployed without any predilation. And once the position is established, and then we dilate the balloon. These are little fast-forwarded videos, edited videos, and that's why it looks a little faster, but that's the end of the position. Another patient which had multiple bile duct stones, large ones with a distal stricture. So in our unit, we often use extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy. I know some of you use laser lithotripsy or EHL. We depend a lot on ESWL because multiple stones can be targeted at the same sitting. So we placed a nasobiliary tube and fragmented the stones. Later on, the stones, small fragments are seen and stricture is still visible at the lower end. We can actually measure the diameter of the bile duct. It measures about 7.9 in the top, 11.9 in the center, and the lower end measures about 5 millimeter diameter. After cleaning the bile duct with the balloon sweeps, we ended up placing a Unity B stent, and you can see this is a stricture which is now getting dilated with the balloon, which is inside the stent. And once it is nicely dilated to about 10 millimeter or so, keeping it for 1 minute, then we deflate it and remove it. And this is how the stent looks like. It's not visible X-ray wise. You need to have a brilliant fluoroscopy to see it. If I can show you, there are two dots end of the stent in the lower end, and there are two dots right in the upper part. But we can see some air in the bile duct, which tells us that it is opened. So this is how it looked like in this patient. The same patient which had stones, after extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy, all the stones have been cleared. Normally, you would have placed a plastic stent, which would have been removed 2 or 3 months later, and then cleaned up the bile duct. But since this patient had 2-3 stent exchanges in the past, after stone clearance, we decided to give more permanent method of dealing with the stones and the stricture. And this time we use a Unity B balloon stent. We come to the last case, which we published 2 years back in Video GI. This was a interductal placement of the biodegradable stent, and we had a bilateral stenting. This was a Y stent kind of formation, just like we use sometimes for a cholangiocarcinoma, for we're using a metal stent. This was a benign disease. A patient had a post-cholecystectomy related perihilar biliary stricture, and this surgery had happened 1 year ago before the patient came to us, and had several times stent exchanges with ERCPs, including balloon dilatation of the stricture, with incremental plastic stent exchanges 3 or 4 times over last 1 year. And this non-resolving biliary stricture was managed using Unity B stent. Let me show you the pictures of this patient. This was the baseline strictures, one on the right side, and the stricture on the left side, and a little bit extending on the confluence as well. after this was the baseline, before the first ERCP. At the time when we placed the Unity B stent bilateral, this was a stricture still there, a little bit open on the left side. Before I go to the case proper, let me show you what we decided to do. This is an ex vivo example. A guide wire is placed on one side, and the stent is deployed, inflated with a balloon, and left inside. Once fully inflated and deployed, the balloon is removed. The second guide wire is passed through the lumen of the stent to the opposite side, or the contralateral side. And then we place the second stent after a little bit dilation to allow the stent assembly to go in. So this is a Y formation of the biodegradable stent. And let me come to the case proper. So this is how we dilated. We placed 2 wires initially and placed the stent first on the left side. You can see the markers, the contrast in the balloon is visible. And then we placed on the right side. These dots are too tiny to be visible, and one has to really focus and see whether the stent is in accurate position. A day later, we got a CT scan done, which shows that both the stents were in position with the dots inside. This is a clip which is visible. About 2 weeks later, the liver functions improved, and at 8 weeks, it was nearly normal. The patient has been on follow-up at least 18 months since the index procedure and does not require any subsequent stent placement or endoscopic intervention with normal liver function test. In conclusion, I would like to sum it up by saying that biodegradable stents are safe and effective for biliary and PD obstruction. Use of biodegradable stents avoids a second ERC procedure for stent removal. Balloon expandable biodegradable stents is an attractive option for benign biliary stricture and even after CBD stone clearance, and when we do not require to do a second ERCP later on. Stent migration is very less likely with this Unity B balloon since it's a bare stent, unlike a fully covered stent which can migrate. There is some concern about time to dissolution, as we were discussing before, and the sustenance of a radial force, and more studies are needed to establish this option. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
So, Sandeep, excellent presentation. I really was very interested about the Y technique, you know. So, so how was at the end this patient? Do you perform many cases intrahepatic biliary duct treatment with the Unity B stent, like Professor Ratislav? What is the feedback that you can give us regarding this kind of procedure and technique?
So it depends on where the benign biliary stricture is located. If it's intrahepatic and the stent is 57 millimeters long, it has to be left inside the duct itself. If the stricture is lower down, then the stent will be visible duodenally as well.
Perfect.
Coming to the experience, we have had used in about 12 patients so far, this Unity B balloon, and out of those 12, 2 were intrahepatic and rest 10 were distal bile duct strictures.
There is a question from the audience. So first, is there any effect on MRI or CT scan image quality from the stent, on this kind of Unity B stent?
So on CT scan, we can see the end of the stents, which are radio opaque, those markers which are visible on X-ray, but rest of things are not visible. Nevertheless, we can see the air column inside on CT, as I showed in the bilateral stenting. Normally, we don't do CT in all patients. We do intermittent X-rays a week or 2 weeks later to see whether the dots are still there. what we often see is the dots in the duodenum get dissolved and go away about 2 to 3 weeks later, but the intrahepatic dots that is a proximal end of the stent remain in position for a longer period of time.
So we can see very well on MRI or CT scan the stent. That's the
Yes,
situation. We
on
can see the
CT
marks as standard. Yeah.
I'm not sure about the MRI, but on CT certainly we can see that.
No, MRI doesn't work off.
Okay.
I already used it, so we can see very well, but the stem is there. It's like when you are in the first year of histology and the professor says there's the cells. You need to see the cells. In the microscopy, you didn't saw nothing. So there is another question, Sandeep. There is minimal impact and if there is any kind of impact of this kind of treatment in the patient, what is your vision and your experience with these stents? This will be replaced metallic stent in the future. This will be used more for benign stenosis or alterated anatomy, or this will be used in and this is coming for rest and to replace some kind of treatment with other stents. What do you think from this?
That's a great question. I believe that these stents, especially the Unity B and Archimedes, both will be useful for benign diseases, especially the strictures, the benign biliary strictures, because we are dilating the stent as well as placing the stent, dilating the stricture and placing the stent, especially the altered surgical anatomy where reaching the stricture sometimes is challenging, especially enteroscopy or a difficult anatomy. We cannot repeat these procedures again and again. That's where I feel they have a place. And as we gain more experience, we can also use as a replacement for a fully covered metal stent in a benign setting, or even in a preoperative setting. Suppose patient for a preoperative distal malignant biliary obstruction, these stents can be considered if the patient is soon going for surgery, because they will definitely remain open at least for 2 weeks or so. And by that time, the jaundice comes down, and they can be an option, alternate option. So benign biliary strictures, definitely. Altered surgical anatomy, definitely. In distal malignant biliary obstruction, yes, they can be an alternative to a metal stent, provided the patient is going for surgery.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, yes. I totally agree with you. I believe the most used will be benign stenosis and alterated anatomy, for sure.
And even after clearance of the bile duct from stones, when we are not sure if the duct is completely cleared or not, we often end up placing a plastic stent, which then has to be removed 2 to 3 months later. In that situation, a biodegradable stent can be placed. And if the patient has no symptom and few weeks to follow, these stents will disappear, but dissolve on their own.
Yeah, the thing is also the price, the
price is the only
procedure.
concern. The price is the only concern. But I'm sure as we use it more, just like
what do you see?
Economics happen. I'm sure Eric can answer that.
Yeah, Eric can answer. Yes, I believe
I can certainly answer it. It's not a problem. I think that the biggest thing is the more we get utility of it, the more we manufacture it, the more the manufacturing cost comes down, the more we can reduce the price in the market. And I think it's really that simple. So that's what we're focused in on right now. And this is the biggest thing I think about the utility of the device.
Absolutely agree. I think it's the economics and the saleability and wider acceptability and use will reduce the cost, because this is quite a useful stent, and we avoid another ERCP. So we reduce the cost of that also happens. So insurance point of view, I think they would accept it because we're reducing one procedure extra.
Yeah, for sure. I believe it's already even if the price is higher than plastic stents, for example, or metallic stent, but now really you need to reduce the cost of a procedure. I don't know what is the cost in your country, but in Ecuador it will go from $1,000 to $2,000. It will depend, if you are repeating the procedure, you will use more materials or not. But for sure now, just using in benign, stenosis and or biliary leak, for example, I believe will be the first, most common indication in the future of this kind of stents, for sure. There are some questions also here. So those placing in a stent in configuration undermine the integrity of the stent and therapy, early dissolution and migration.
I'm sorry, I could not understand the question. Can you please repeat it for me?
If you place an stent inside, this will change the integrity of the stent, or can have any impact in the dissolution, in the disappearance of the stents and the migration of the stent when you do this kind of manipulation, when you put another stent inside the other stent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have a right answer for it, but in the situation that we were in, I thought that was the best method of management, because we had tried everything else using multiple plastic stents before, and it worked. Whether it's a balloon dilatation which helped open up the stricture, or the balloon followed by the stent. Yes, there will be some disintegration of the lattices in the center through which the stent is going to the contralateral side, but still a major part of the length of the stent is still having a reasonable radial force intact, and that's more important. So you dilate it and let the radial force keep it open for some time till the stricture remodels around the stent.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I don't believe that you should have any negative impact on degradation, whether you're using the Archimedes and the Hilum or you're using Unity. Regardless of the choices, you shouldn't see a negative impact on degradation. And I think I go back to what Professor Robles was saying previously, that one of the greatest attributes, I think, for the device in general is that you can totally change the patient pathway and potentially eliminate these second surgeries for removal. And that's really where you're generating the cost savings. But also one thing that Rosti brought up, which I thought was super interesting, is he started talking about the different areas where you can begin to treat patients where the previous technology didn't allow you to have this opportunity. And I think that also offers some significant opportunity for savings, and is something that as an organization that's really important for us to explore with the clinical community.
Yes. There is a last question to Professor Sandeep. What about placing biodegradable stents side by side? It is suitable regarding the stent diameters. Do you believe you can do it side by side? To my opinion, no, but I don't know what is your opinion.
I agree with you. Intuitively, we believe that if you place side by side, the second stent is going to crump the first stent. If that crushes the first stent because of the balloon expansion, it doesn't serve the purpose. And that's why we went stent in stent technique for the hilar reconstruction.
Yeah.
Has there been any experience with when you're doing either stent through stent? Have you seen any stent occlusion rapidly from debris accumulating where the stent is crossing the other stent?
You meaning about the case that I showed in a benign biliary stricture setting?
Or any time where you have placed stent inside stent?
So we often use it for a hilar cholangiocarcinomas where the communication between the right and the left system is not there. And we prefer to use stent in stent technique when the bile duct is not very dilated. If it's thin, it cannot take two stents in the same lumen. So in that situation, you place stent by stent, stent in stent, and it's more often the tumor ingrowth, because those are uncovered metallic stents which can cause occlusion. And The only drawback of stent in stent is that you can only target one side, which is the last side. The first side is more out, although it can be reached if the lattices are big, but if the stent cells are small, then it's difficult to reach them. That's the only downside of stent in stent technique, but it's quite good in a thin bile duct.
Yeah, I think it should revolutionize treating hilar disease, both benign and malignant. Although I think once you have, and Sandeep, you may want to comment on this, the selective cannulation through the stent of the contralateral obstructed duct, be it right or left, could be very challenging, is it not?
Yes, it is. So what we do normally for a uncovered stent in a Y formation, we keep first we place both the wires on either side, place on one side which is more difficult first, then go to the other side, keeping the wire inside. When we withdraw the catheter back, we do not come completely out of the stent, stay within the stent lumen, and then try to use an angled wire using the first wire as a marker. And once we enter the opposite side,
yes,
that's how we do it.
Yes, I think the audience should know that you're watching true experts that have a lot of conceptual skills. It isn't just being technically skillful. You can see that Sandeep is also very clever and uses his devices in a way that permits him to achieve success. So it's also a thinking man's game as well.
Paul, I would also like to add one more thing. When we have to do a contralateral stenting in a Y formation, we can use a spyglass in a metal stent situation. But I personally feel that we should avoid spyglass because we flush too much water and that can cause hydrolysis of the stent. So we should use fluoroscopy as our guide and not endoscopic or a cholangioscopic view.
A very interesting concept. I think now we can try and connect. Maybe Rosti is ready in the operating room. It looks like he's got another case. Rosti, are you ready for us?
Yes, Paul, thank you. I hope you can hear me again. And I have already case number 3. It's a 79 years old gentleman who underwent laparoscopic cholecystectomy in August 2021. And again, there was a perioperative injury, this time on common hepatic duct, just below the bifurcation of hepatic ducts. Postoperatively bile leak, which needs to be addressed with endoscopy. And we verified iatrogenic lesion of common hepatic duct. There was done primary suture. And afterwards, patient underwent a series of treatments with multiple plastic stents for this refractory stricture, frequent balloon dilation, as well as we use special metal stent for benign strictures, which, however, didn't stay in place and was not very successful. Initially, he was classified as Strasberg D or Hanover C1 lesion, iatrogenic lesion, and again, based on ischemia. This is how it looks like on the left side. I'm not really sure if you can appreciate the bile leak, which is on the level of the clip, which is actually touching or kissing common hepatic duct. So it's visible, but it was quite proactive bile leak. And on the right side, you can see one of the last cholangiograms where there is still present stent demanding or stenting demanding stricture. I just removed before you joined because you had a longer conversation, which is, by the way, extremely interesting to listen to you guys. I removed 2 10 French duodenobbiliary stents. So now if we can switch to fluoro. So I have already removed, as I said, 2 10 French stents, and you can hopefully appreciate on fluoroscopy position of clips. My catheter, metabolite catheter, is in the bile duct, and I'm just below that strictured part, which, however, looks much nicer than before. But you can still see some narrowing. Patient had now these plastic stents for a couple of months. We are quite close to the liver hilum. I will try to provide you better image. Okay, so what do you think, guys? Now the tip of the catheter is basically now at the level of stricture, where basically also the ischemia is, where clip is, and where the narrowing was before. Guide wire, please. Physical.
Rusty, while you're concentrating, I might ask you to think or speak to the audience about whether or not you think a single session with a Unity B will be sufficient, or you imagine another?
I hope so. I actually will plan for this patient. We will go up to 10 millimeter. So we will use 10 millimeter. We will use 10 millimeter Unity B stent, and we will inflate it to maximal diameter. And there have been some work done, as I have mentioned before. We know patient for quite a while, and he was treated. It was really behaving like a refractory stricture. Maybe you can say, why don't just stick, with the plastic stent? But certainly we put a lot of time for this. We had also issues with this particular patient because his family is living abroad, so he was not very compliant because of his family reason, a difficult family situation. He was not very compliant to come on frequent controls, even every 3 months, just to exchange plastic stents. So we would like also for him, for social convenience and his family, provide him one-step procedure. And that's basically the rationale why I would like to provide this patient with Unity B, with the hope that this will hold. Just Unity. So in this case, because we see that there is a relatively nice passage, I will not predilate this stricture. I have removed from the stricture 2 10 French stents, so I do believe there is a space enough to safely introduce and then deploy stent. Any other questions?
Do you have an estimation of the size? I kind of missed that with the cholangiogram.
Yeah, now I exchange, but I apologize that I cannot shift you that. But the cholangiogram, it's 9 millimeter. It's 9 millimeter. I can see it on my fluoro. That's the estimate, which is quite accurate in terms of calibration.
When would you declare success and deem the patient doesn't need any more intervention?
Following this procedure, we will plan patient for clinical control and laboratory control, in 3 months, and we will see how things develop. But I will not plan routine endoscopy on him. I will really let it guided by clinical presentation and labs. Eventually done some ultrasound control. We have done also on this patient cholangioscopy before. We would like to know how this behaves. So it was really concentric benign stricture in this case. Based on ischemia, based on very closely placed metallic clip alongside the bile duct, and because there was then also perioperative suture of the common hepatic duct, so that might have been also very important factor why it contributed to the development of this ischemic stricture. That's basically for biliary surgeon. I'm biliary surgeon myself. That's the important thing. You can now appreciate on endoscopic view. I'm passing again Unity V stent. I'm trying to use as less as possible, or not at all elevator, just to not to deform it. It's a very delicate stent. And let's switch to fluoro. And now you can see that I'm passing. You can see markers. Very nice. And now let's dilate. And we will go into maximum in this case, and it will be 9 atmosphere.
Dr.
Now-
Kunde, you can see the markers very well in this particular instance.
Yes. And you can see, there are markers on catheter itself, and there are markers on a stent. And now you can see nicely. I hope you can appreciate it on our fluoro. Nicely dilated stent all the way. It's pointing out towards right hepatic duct. So again, what we discussed before, I'm pretty much comfortable with this. We are using the advantage that we are dealing with a non-covered stent. So it's for the benefit of placement into this hilar strictures, or also suprahilar. Okay, we can start to deflate stent. And as Sandeep, it was a very excellent presentation and excellent comments and tips. What Sandeep presented, we really need to be very careful. Exsufflate balloon completely. Do fluoroscopic control that balloon is empty, and only then start to remove balloon. Otherwise, we may dislodge the stent. But it's sitting nicely. We have inflated it to 1 centimeter.
For me, in ERCP, I think such devices are the most exciting
You
development.
can also perhaps appreciate on a fluoroscopy negative contrast with the carbon dioxide. We do all the ERCPs with carbon dioxide, and you might perhaps start to appreciate the.
Certainly, I think we're seeing the future of management of diseases in both the biliary tract and the pancreatic duct with.
Okay. So that's the view. Let's give the room view. I think that the case is concluded. As I said, clinical control would be expected in about 3 months with the labs, and we'll see how we proceed with this patient.
Well, we're about 10 minutes over. Rosti, you can join us for any final comments.
Join you. Just let me please thank you for my nursing staff, for anesthesiology team, and also for support from AMG International, and also for Martin joining us from Olympus for technical support. Thanks to my team. I join you in a minute.
I had one other small point. I just wanted to wish Sandeep a very happy birthday, and hopefully it was a great day yesterday, and that everything worked out well for you. Thanks for being here.
Happy 40th.
I think 40 is the number of years we've known each other.
I'm surveying any questions from the audience. I think certainly some final comments, particularly from the folks with the greatest experience with this, would be greatly appreciated. I think obviously you're seeing some tour de force endoscopy and some presentations of what the future holds. I think that we'll all look forward to a future that's free of plastic. These stents are also apparently ecologically minded, so this is a green presentation.
Well, it's very interesting that you say that, because there's a sustainability program in the UK that's so present right now, and it's a big point of discussion there as well. And you know, I would just tell you, I'm not sure if you're all aware as well, as that, you know, Nottingham University is getting ready to publish their manuscript looking at the cost savings associated with the use of Archimedes as well. So there's so many different studies that are investigator driven that are coming out. It's a really exciting time, and I corroborate what Paul was saying. I'm hoping that we're seeing part of the future of treatment for pancreatic and biliary disease with biodegradables. I did have one question while we're waiting for Rosti to come for the panel. Do you think there's a need for a covered biodegradable version where the covering's biodegradable as well?
Yes, go ahead, Sandeep. Yes.
Okay, sorry, I jumped in before anybody could answer. I think it is useful for bile leaks, especially the resistant bile leaks, which are not improving with the plastic stents. I think there it may have a definite role. And so also for, say, even pancreatic duct leaks, if in a chronic pancreatitis setting, there also we can use that.
What about for pancreatic drain? What about for pancreatic drainage for pseudocysts?
There we need a wider caliber stent. The current stent is only maximum 10 millimeter diameter, something similar to a tubular covered stent, which we started off in walled off necrosis. They sometimes cause problems. So if you can have something which has a wider design, it may be considerable, yes.
Sandeep, I think
we have discussed this before, Eric. I think.
We know the wheels in his brain are already turning.
Yeah, I believe for
some time back, I think Eric was in AIG, and then we were discussing about that option as well. And
I come back and see you all again as well, for sure.
So Rasi, fantastic demonstration, great cases, and congratulations to you and your team. Very nice cases. We were discussing about the future of biodegradable stents, and you need to be probably in the management of covered stents for pseudocyst management. I believe it's a great idea, in my opinion, for pseudocysts without wall of necrosis, because of not necessary to come back, to remove the stent, and could be very good approach, regarding the leaks. Yes, we have some cases in our series. It's around 10% of cases that doesn't respond very well to plastic stents, but it's something that we need to see in the future. For the moment, I believe we can use also the same metallic stent uncover it and see what's happening, because this will give us some kind of inflammatory tissue and granulation in the tissue, and probably close the leak. So we need to see what are the results of the studies in the near future. I don't know, what do you think, Paul and Rusty?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I apologize for that. That's an excellent comment, and I absolutely agree what Carlos said. That's a really excellent conversation you are guys having, and I agree that this is a field to explore, where we need to eliminate the need for controls and uninfected pseudocyst, or even ones, which are uninfected with a minimal percentage of debris, might be something to explore. For me, primarily, where I see not just gap of the market, but very high complementary value, is in those cases where we have a surgically altered anatomy, or in those cases where we are applying a very difficult approach, either with within interventional EUS and similar. I like that conversation we had about, and what Sandeep so excellently commented about hilar strictures, because that's our daily bread, and we are more and more aggressive in the treatment of these benign lesions in the liver hilum. And certainly all these tools are coming as a complementary to current options we have with the other tools.
I, for one, am very excited to see what additional evolution Q3 will come up with for biodegradable products. I think it's a very exciting time.
I think most of these questions resonated, you know, where you discussed already and ask how much we see of hyperplasia, how much it will affect our intraductal view when we are performing following cholangioscopies, how much it affects. We are quite enthusiastic following this initial experience, both with Unity B and Archimedes, in terms of how it works and how it resolves strictures, but we still would like to see how it is with the intraductal changes and if it affects the evaluation.
Well, if no one has additional comments or questions, I think we'll let Rosti have the final word on it. Wonderful cases, Rosti. Thank you so much, Carlos and Sandeep. That was super presentations. And Eric, thanks for supporting this program, and also to Endoscopy on Air. Everybody have a good day. I'm sure everybody's already hard at work. With that, I think we can close the meeting. Thank everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. It was an excellent meeting. Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody. Really enjoyed it.